Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you from Hollywood, California, just off the 101 on the third rock from the sun. I am your host, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me is my co-conspirator in podcasting crimes, Kevin.
Get in the car, let's go. We got some crimes to commit. I imagine criminals say.
Yeah, that's how criminals talk, right?
Let's go crime.
Let's go get the crimes. This week on the Jibber Jabber, no one was supposed to get hurt. 2007's Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. A movie a long time, I believe when we, in our first 5 picks, we were like, we should do The Devil Knows You're Dead. And then we kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back.
You know, coming around episode 30 odd something here, we got to it.
Yeah, 30 weeks later, we finally figured it out. I do believe this was written in May of last year.
No, it wasn't that early.
It wasn't it?
I don't think it was that early.
We were definitely talking about it that early.
We've been talking about it, so. But here we are. We made it.
Quick log line. Brothers Andy and Hank aim to solve their money woes by pulling off a simple crime. Rob a small mom and pop jewelry store in the New York suburbs. The catch? The mom and pop store belongs to their mom and pop. What starts as a simple crime goes from bad to worse in a heartbeat. It's a great premise to a movie that I would want to watch. I didn't know. I've never heard of this movie. I'm jumping ahead. Starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke, Marissa Tomei, Michael Shannon, Rosemary Harris, and Albert Finney. Best Seymour Hoffman role?
I'm gonna have to go with A Most Wanted Man, actually. His final completed role. I think he is extremely great in that film.
And I'm gonna go with The Hunger Games just to piss you off.
I hate you. Some you bastard. Some close competitors. His role in The Master, and I think his role in this as well. But that role in A Most Wanted Man is just everything that was great about it.
Oh man, too much. Directed by the legendary Sidney Lumet, and it was also the first produced screenplay written by Kelly Masterson, who went on to write the great sci-fi thriller Snowpiercer.
She's kind of blown up recently, so.
What else have you been doing?
I don't know.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. This film was distributed independently by Think Film after a very successful festival run. Those festival runs make or break you.
They really do.
Sidney Lumet, Rapid Fire, 12 Angry Men.
Great.
Never seen it. Dog Day Afternoon.
Also great.
Totally great. Serpico.
I think a little too slow for my taste, and I like them slow.
Interesting. I've never seen it. Network.
Very good. Still holds up to this day.
Is that the one about Al Pacino? And he's running a news program?
No.
Okay, I've never seen it.
You're thinking of The Insider.
Murder on the Orient Express.
I've never seen it.
I've seen a Murder on the Orient Express. I have no idea if Sidney Lumet was involved or not.
I feel like it's been made a million times and will probably be made again.
The Wiz.
It's an interesting film. It's interesting.
Is this the version of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Then I have seen it,
and Diana Ross is Dorothy.
As a kid, I did not understand it at all. Which is kind of dumb, because it's I get the Wizard of Oz, why don't you get this? Same thing. Fucking kids. Fucking me. Find me guilty.
Interesting film. Has some issues, but it's not bad.
The Verdict.
People really put this one up as a classic, and I just didn't connect very well to it when I watched it.
Never seen it, and I've never also seen Prince in the City.
I never even heard of that. Mm-hmm. Prince in the City. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Better Dorothy, Judy Garland or Diana Ross in The Wiz?
Diana Ross, come on.
I gotta go with Garland.
All right.
But
Diana Ross, man. Untouchable.
Vin Diesel's toupee and Find Me Guilty. Stylish or hot mess? And I'll let you say both if you really want to.
It's a hot mess. It's not stylish at all. That guy was never meant to be anything other than bald.
You think so?
Yep.
Yep.
And that toupee proves it.
And I think the Fast and Furious movies prove that he wasn't meant to wear anything other than a white ribbed tank top. A white ribbed tank top.
Completely agree.
Are you familiar with the works of Sidney Lumet and his style?
Yes, and it's half the reason I chose this movie for the podcast.
You did choose this movie, and I will answer this by saying I am not familiar with the name Sidney Lumet.
Other
than I think conversations I've had with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's just a good working guy in Hollywood and makes edgier stuff, but he does it very efficiently, but with a whole lot of... His movies feel like they're full of life. You know, it's just Dog Day Afternoon just is moving nonstop from the moment it hits frame one.
I mean, that movie that's one of those like that's like it's like The Thing or like Aliens, where it's like a movie that you see and then you watch other movies in the genre trying to capture something like it.
Yep.
Like I remember we watched that movie with my friend Nick when we were in 8th grade. And we just found it I don't even know how we knew to like and like knew to watch it. I remember watching it and being like, God damn! And then we rented a bunch of other stuff, and we're like, none of this is anything even close.
Yep, it's expertly made, and he does it like on time and with minimal budgets, and he's just always been one of the most reliable filmmakers who's ever been out there. And then this, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, ended up being his final film. He had other stuff in production, but he passed away before anything came about. And it's a pretty good swan song to leave on, you know, even though he didn't know it was going to be his last movie.
Yeah, Sidney Lumet did 50 feature films in 50-year career that included directing such classics as 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon, Network, The Verdict, and he was 86 when he died. 86, and he was still making movies.
So, I'm no math major, but 50 years and 50 movies, that's a movie a year, every single year. Mm-hmm. That's impressive.
Woody Allen called Lumet the quintessential New York filmmaker, and Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee has cited him as an influence.
That's high praise.
High praise indeed. Kev, what's your thoughts on New York City?
Hell of a town. It's overwhelming.
It's a hell of a town.
It's a fucking great town. I've been there once. It's, I think you could live there and never run out of things to do. It's just always bustling, and it's big, and there's all kinds of culture, some good, some questionable, but it's a hell of a town. There's no other place like it.
I will say that I have never been to New York. The way New Yorkers describe New York makes it seem miserable.
It certainly has some miserable aspects.
And I'm not, and I mean, in the same way that the way LA people talk about LA, they make it seem like it's just the worst place to live in the world. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I kind of, it's like, you should avoid utopian and dystopian narratives, right? Like, if someone says something is all the way good or all the way bad, it must not be either. So, I don't know. It's
go visit it.
I should check it out. You know what I mean? I like the idea of being able to walk around a lot of places.
Oh, you do not need a car there. You can walk, subway, taxi, anywhere.
Pizza pie. New York floppy pizza style, Chicago deep dish. Or do you prefer the Italian cracker thin crust?
I like my Chicago deep dish, though.
Interesting.
I like New York. I like folding it up and shoving it in your face, but, man, that Chicago deep dish is hard to beat.
I'm going to say this. I've never had a good slice of Chicago deep dish my life.
You might only be able to get it in Chicago.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, you go to Papa Murphy's and get that deep dish, deep dish barbecue pizza with the barbecue sauce. It's like, I'm not sure this is the way that the guys in Chicago like it. So I'm going to go with New York floppy pizza, because I feel like you get that good pizza like that anywhere. You know what I mean? Also, shout out Lucifer's. Shout out Two Boots Pizza. Shout out Stella Barra.
Yeah, where's Lucifer's?
It's around. There's one on Melrose.
Oh yeah, I've never
Lucifer's is good pizza, man.
I'm gonna shout out to Pizzeria Moza. Fantastic pizza.
Garage Pizza.
Yeah.
And anyone who says you can't get good pizza in LA, it's like, homie, you better shut your fucking mouth.
Yep.
Stop going to Domino's. It's not gonna be good anywhere.
Never.
Best New York band, the Ramones or the Velvet Underground?
Velvet Underground.
I'm gonna have to go with the Ramones.
Actually, the correct answer is Kiss.
Oh, interesting. And I bet some people would say the New York Dolls, but I still stick with the Ramones.
But they're wrong, because the correct answer is Kiss.
Interesting.
But I do, of those two, I gotta pick Velvet Underground overall.
Fun fact, Sidney Lumet's daughter, Janet Lumet, wrote the 2008 dramedy Rachel Getting Married starring Anne Hathaway. Kev, Anne Hathaway thoughts?
She's cute. Like her a lot. Good actress. Very smart. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Give me a call, Anne. After you have that baby.
You're not put off by that terrible Oscar hosting?
Nah, they didn't deserve half the flack they got for that. I didn't think it was that bad.
I lay the blame squarely at the feet of the people who produced the Oscars, because like if you give Billy Crystal old man jokes, it makes sense.
Yep.
But if you give Anne Hathaway old man jokes, she just seems crazy.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. And
Yeah.
get some new jokes, for God's sakes, Oscar producers.
As it is recording, this movie is not streaming anywhere, although it has been on Netflix in the past and can return. Check your local EST provider. It is available on DVD, Blu-ray. Can't find it.
That's it.
Can't find it anywhere else. But double check. You know, maybe by the time you listen to this, things have changed. You never know what's going on in this crazy world. You know what I mean?
Yep. You never know.
You never know. Kev, I've never heard of this movie, but you've picked it for this podcast. Why?
I like films about small town crime.
Mm-hmm.
I like Sidney Lumet. I think he's, as we talked about, he's a very classic filmmaker, very well known, but I still think he's kind of underrated. And I wanted to bring him out a little bit more and talk about him on this show. And I think this movie does not feel like it was made by an 81-year-old man. It's very lively and it's gritty and it's not afraid to do certain things. And it feels like this feels like the debut film of like the next Quentin Tarantino, but it's Sidney Lumet.
It's been an 80-year-old man's opus.
Yep, exactly. So I think it's an underseen, nasty little crime thriller, and I wanted to bring it out.
Speaking of small town crime films, small town crime film rapid fire, go right now. Fargo.
In my top 5 of all time.
I also like Fargo. A History of Violence.
Great.
Super great. A Simple Plan.
Great until the end. I didn't like the way it ended.
Never seen it. Capote.
Also a great film. In Cold Blood is also a great book.
No Country for Old Men.
Another fantastic genre that the Coen brothers have really done a lot of work in. The small town crime genre. Fargo and No Country for Old Men are kind of two sides of the same coin, and they're both great.
I also liked it a lot, but I do feel like it's one of those things where like I feel like I understand it, but I feel like I'm one conversation away from someone being like, "Oh, I don't understand the movie at all." You know what I mean?
Might have to. Maybe we'll do it for the podcast.
Maybe we should. Blood Simple. Another Coen Brothers movie, right?
Another Coen. Their debut film. I need to watch it again. I don't think I got everything I needed to out of it the first time.
Interesting. That's the one. It's a mystery, right? It's like a.
It's kind of a mystery.
It's like there's a scene where the guy's like reaching around to unlock the window, and a woman stabs him with a knife, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Straw Dogs. Editor's note. We covered this on the podcast.
Yes, we did.
Scroll around and find it. I'm gonna say mixed emotions, and when I saw it, and it's not gotten any better.
Yeah. I agree. It's not an enjoyable movie to watch, but I understand why it's important.
Killer Joe.
Not good.
Freaking not delivering for you.
No. It's that movie had some issues.
What? Like what?
The least of which was Matthew McConaughey making somebody suck a chicken leg to look like a penis.
And that someone was not just any someone. That someone was Juno Temple. Wasn't it?
Juno Temple?
Wasn't it? She's the girl in the movie.
No, there's another girl. It's like Gina Gershon or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Juno Temple is the queen of being in small movies.
Oh yeah, that's her forte.
It's her forte.
Her and Parker Posey.
And I love her, man. She's fucking great.
She does great in everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Killer Joe could have been like this Bobo for Bonkers great thing, and it's just kind of a mess.
Speaking of Bobo for Bonkers great things, don't tell mom the babysitter's dead.
I haven't seen that since it was on VHS.
Gator Bait.
Gator Bait. I've always wanted to see it.
Never seen it either. Gator Bait 2, Cajun Justice.
Also always wanted to see it.
See, Gator Bait 2, Cajun Justice is the kind of movie that you go watch before Gator Bait 1. Yep. You know what I'm saying? That's got to be one of the best subtitles ever. Cajun Justice. That tells you everything you need to know about that movie. Also, Cajun Justice is the name of our hot sauce.
Yep. There might already be one, but you know what?
Man.
If not, we're trademarking that tomorrow.
So we're getting into small town crime, suburban crime movies. You like them and I like them, and I think what I like about it, and tell me if you agree, is it's the idea of a place the stories about secrets in a place where there are no secrets, and there's something happening in a place where nothing happens.
Yep.
Right. I think is that not the appeal?
It's there's that, and then it's people who are not equipped at all to handle
What's
these
going on?
issues.
Yeah.
But they have to do their best, basically. And this movie has an interesting contrast because the sons live in New York. They live in Manhattan. But then their parents are in, like, the small town suburb, and it's kind of a mix of these two worlds. These, like, hard-edged New York guys and the soft-spoken small town people. So this one's kind of a really interesting look into that world.
And I mean, both of us grew up in small town areas. I grew up in the suburbs. You grew up in a literal small town, right?
Yep.
And I feel like when you live in that area, there's this idea that I am not a big city person. Like literally, not like it could be. That could be a judgment. That could be a statement of fact. But that's how you feel, right? Like the big city is the big city, and we live in not the big city. And in a way that you feel like the big city people don't have that same. They're not like, wow, man, I don't live in a small town. Like, they're not lamenting anything, right? They're just living.
Yep.
And you're like fake living. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's anytime I go back home and tell people, oh, I live in LA, it's like they get this sullen look on their face. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, you live in the big city, huh? And then the next question is always, how much is your rent? It's like...
It's a lot, you fuckers.
It's a lot, asshole. But I have cool shit to do, so it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean...
It's that small town mindset of like, you know, we are a certain group of people, and that's what we're always going to be, and we're not going to tolerate nothing that come out the big city, y'all. So and then like if there's different people, well, they go live in this part, and then the other different people, well, they go live over here. This is our people, and we have a certain way of doing things, and you're not gonna do that no matter what.
Right.
know?
And the appeal of the small town crime story is disrupting all of those narratives,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Where it's like you find out the people you thought couldn't keep a secret have deep dark secrets. The town that's isolated becomes invaded. You know, and possibly from within. Very interesting things.
The pop culture landscape currently obsessed with Making a Murderer, which is about a real life small town crime. So, which I have not watched yet, but that's the big buzz going around these days. Making a Murderer.
This may be controversial, but I don't really care. I'm not gonna watch that.
That's
I
fine.
can't. I just can't. I can't do another serial. I just can't do another thing where it's just I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm already on this.
It's getting hyped up so much that it's almost it's hard to just get into it, you know.
And I got nothing against it. It's just like I just don't want to have to live that story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then maybe that makes me lame, and then I guess I'm just a big lame.
Sit here and watch.
I'm not hearing you say no, Kev. What the fuck?
Do what you want, man. We're big city folks. We can live any life we want.
Yeah. I'm an adult. This film is notable because Lumet, who was in his 80s at the time of production, shot this on HD cameras as opposed to film. Lumet was quoted as saying, shooting film is, quote, a pain in the ass. And he loved the convenience and quick setups he could get with digital. Devil was shot with minimal light setups, with Lumet opting to use natural light as the only source in some scenes. Lumet was also quoted as saying, anything you can do with film, I can do with HD. We've talked about this a couple of times on the show. But this is an interesting kind of twist on the whole conversation. If an old stalwart like Lumet can make a transition from film to digital and sing its praises, why do so many older filmmakers still clutch to film and bemoan digital? Tarantino, your boy Spielberg being the biggest two. Oh, also Chris Nolan being the three. Is it a master filmmaker can do whatever he wants with any format, or what do you think? What do you think about that?
Again, it's the idea of that the format you use is why it's great, and I don't agree with that at all. It's in the hands of someone like Sidney Lumet. He could probably shoot a movie on an iPhone and make it look really fucking cool. And an iPhone 4.
Ooh, not even the 6S.
And it's, you know, it's the way you learn how to use the tool before you just go out and use it, right? And digital has some things. It's faster, it's cheaper, you can edit a lot easier with it, but those things can be abused in a certain way. It can make it look cheap, it can make it you can edit too fast, like because you just fall in love with certain things about it. But
that's not intrinsic to any format.
And that's not intrinsic. Yeah, it's not the format's fault. It's your use of the format.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it makes you become more disciplined, I think, because film kind of has a built-in discipline to it, where you have to plan everything or it looks like shit. You have to, if you make a wrong edit on something, it's going to take a lot longer to fix it on film than it is on digital. It takes longer to digitize film, like Lord of the Rings, they had it like constantly running, like miles of film getting digitized. It's like,
right,
it could have fit in a box,
right.
If you did it digitally.
Which on modern digital cameras, there's like proxy files, and that's your offline edit, and then you can switch that over to your online edit, do all your color times and all that kind of shit. Also, yeah, Jon Favreau into that list of old timer film purists.
Is he shooting Jungle Book on film?
I don't know.
That movie is like 99.1% digital.
I remember him at Comic-Con. He got on stage, and this is when he's putting Cowboys and Aliens, and he was like, we're not making this movie in 3D because making it on 3D means we got to shoot it on video, and I'm never going to shoot anything on video. And everyone cheered, we hate 3D, we hate video. And
I think that's another stigma to it too, that digital is video.
Yes.
It goes back to the days like in Boogie Nights when Philip Baker Hall wants to move everything to VHS. It's like that's what the old filmmakers think digital is that it's a video, it's a VHS tape.
Mm-hmm.
And all it is, it's ones and zeros just collected as data,
Right. And yeah, go ahead.
And it's, to just immediately dismiss it and say, well, this isn't as pure as my little format, it's you're killing so much advancement that could be happening. And so much time wasted, and I think what it also scares them a little bit is that now that anybody can do it, we're gonna figure out who the really great storytellers are. You don't need this huge budget to pull off a movie anymore. You can buy a Red camera for a couple $1,000s or rent one for not a whole lot of money. You can have Final Cut or an Avid for less than $1,000 on your home computer, and it's everybody has access to this technology now, and now we're gonna find out who can actually be the best at it.
Right.
There's not that extra layer of you need the connections, you need all this money, you need all these techniques to do it, and it's important to know those, and knowing those will separate some of the men from the boys. But it's not limited to just a certain group of people now. It's anybody can get out there and tell their story.
Right. Before we get into what you just said, from the Correction and Omissions Department, the technical specifications according to IMDb on The Jungle Book, to be released in 2016, was shot on the Red Epic Dragon variation. I don't know. I fell behind on my Red camera iterations, but yes, it was shot digitally.
So there you go, Jon Favreau.
So you sold out. You sold out. You sold out. So I agree with what you're saying completely, and I think a lot of it comes down to what you're getting at, which is perception, right? Quentin Tarantino was on the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable. You did on YouTube. Directors Roundtable, very worth. You can just listen to it. You don't even have to watch it. And he was talking about how he's like, if you project something digitally, that's just television in a movie theater, right? And it's like, that is a perception of what television is. And Bret Easton Ellis is like, television is an inferior medium because on TV, things don't change. TV is the same story over and over again, right? But there is a benefit to that style of storytelling, and the difference between a movie and TV is not digital or film, right? Lots of television was shot on film, and lots of television is continuing to be shot on film, and lots of movies are shot digitally. They're different mediums. You know what I mean? And in film, the way 99% of films are made, right? 3-act structure. You have someone in the beginning, they're a certain way. At the end of the first act, something happens to them. They spend the second act dealing with that. The third act, they'll never be the same again, and that's the end of the movie, right?
That is 3-act structure, folks.
And then on TV shows, it's like you have a setup to a show, which is a concept, right? It's you solve fucking crimes using your psychic powers, right? And we're gonna do that every week, and it's the same thing every week. But season to season, you're telling a longer story show. So if it's done poorly, it's just the season 1 every season, right? He'll never get with the love interest because the show will never be about that. But if the show is good, every season is different, right? Ultimately, you could, in vast swipes, describe it as the same thing, right? Like, guy solves crimes. But in the first season, he's trying to get the girl and blah, 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 and then he tells her how he feels, and then they get together. The second season is about their courtship. The third season is about them starting a family. The fourth season is about, dealing with the family. If it's over on the fifth season, whatever, right? So it's like the format of a TV show and the format of a movie are intrinsically different, and that's what makes them each thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, this idea that the way it's presented defines the format, I think, is complete balderdash.
Right. If you had a film print of a TV show and you projected it in a movie theater, you're projecting a TV show in a movie theater. It's not.
Cheers doesn't become
a movie cinema
just because you put it on 35 millimeter and project it.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers is just Cheers.
Right.
Sam and Diane are always just going to be at each other's throats, no matter what format it's on, if it's in CinemaScope or not.
Is that what that show's about?
For like 4 seasons, and then Kirstie Alley comes on.
So I just think that it's like the whole film debate is like saying like cartoon animation sucks, it's all about 3D animation. It's like they're both just things. You could do whatever you want with either of them. You know what I mean? Like Miyazaki makes his movies in the style of anime, which is the style that he mastered. And he understands, and he is the master of that, and they're all great.
But he does use digital in his stuff.
Right.
Like certain backgrounds are digital plates, or like a moving something or other will be done digitally because it's just too much to do hand-drawn because there's so much other things going on in that shot.
Which is totally fine, because that's how he's telling his story. And if you're good at telling your story and you tell it well, and what does it matter?
The true masters, they don't limit themselves on the tools they use.
Mm-hmm.
It's they know which tool is going to do the job the best.
Right.
And
for someone like Tarantino, that might be film, but that's the truth for him. That's not the truth for everyone.
And as we talked about in the Hateful Eight episode, hearing that camera and that 70mm film and the way that movie looked, if that's what it takes for him to get that good of a product, then stick with it. You don't need to switch to digital. Just do it your way. It's fine. But don't go knocking somebody else who can do it digitally and do something great as well.
Right.
I'm pretty sure The Martian was shot digitally, and that movie looks great too.
Right.
But doesn't feel like some new wave piece of shit. It feels like an old school uplifting film.
Right.
So,
these things are what they are.
They are. And I don't know, it's one of those debates I didn't think would go on that long, and it continues to rage. And I think everybody's got just the wrongest head about it. So.
And I think the best I think the cherry on top of this whole debate is recently at CES the president of Kodak said Quentin Tarantino saved Kodak and saved film, and it's like, hey, dum-dum, isn't that your fucking job? Why did this dude have to save your fucking company and your business and the format? What were you doing?
Dicking around going, well, my film's better than all this.
Yeah. Let's put the Kodak thing on a shitty digital camera. So I think that just personifies this whole argument.
Yep, it really does.
Lumet famously did not do a lot of takes. There's a tracking shot in Devil that was the first shot of the film that was recorded. While not incredibly long, it's still really complicated and technical on a camera and blocking level. Lumet only needed one take and told everyone they were moving on. No safety takes, no bullshit. What do you make of this? Do you think that Lumet is able to get away with this because he's experienced filmmakers? Do you think that is something that people should ascribe to? What do you think?
Again, it goes back to, I think, a little bit of the film digital. It's what works for you. It's to say one way. I think certain people get blackballed for doing a lot of takes. Like, there are actors who are in David Fincher films who said their agents told them, don't do it, because David Fincher does a lot of takes and you're not going to like it.
He's a real Kubrick about them takes.
He justified it, old David Fincher. He said, the writers wrote however many number of drafts on this script. The painters painted those sets. The guys constructed it. You've spent all this time in pre-production. You've spent all this money. You've so much time has already gone into the making of the thing. So when you actually put the camera down in front of it and do it, get it right. You know, take the time. And if it takes 60 takes, then do it, you know. If it takes 2, then you're okay. You got what you needed, you know. But yeah, I feel like...
But it's never going to take 2.
He did say, I was listening to the commentary on Gone Girl. There's a shot where Neil Patrick Harris drives his Jaguar up, stops it right in the frame, and walks towards his house. And he says on the commentary, he's like, that shot took 2 takes, and we got it, and we moved on. So anybody who gives me shit about doing too many takes, go fuck yourself.
That's awesome.
But then you get a guy like Sidney Lumet, and who I saw firsthand, John Carpenter, who do so much planning beforehand that they kind of already know exactly what they're looking for as soon as they get there. And then they just do it. And then they move on. And that's fine too. You know, they've already done the prep just in a different way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you do it in pre-production where you just they hammer out every detail as they go. Or you got guys like Fincher who also does plenty of pre-production, but wants to see what else there is. You know, and to say one style is better than the other, again, is another thing I think is absurd. Yeah.
I think that's the takeaway. I think when you look at a guy like Fincher and you look at a guy like Lumet, I think the angle people look at this is from being an outsider looking in, right? Someone who is an amateur, conceptually, right? No one's paying you to make stuff. So it's like you and me, if we're going to make a short, do we go Sidney Lumet's way or do we go David Fincher's way? You know, and I think the takeaway is you should know what they do and you should know about how other people do things, but you got to figure out what's right for you in the context of the situation, right? Sidney Lumet is a guy who, when he speaks, people fucking listen, right? So if he's like, we gotta do this, you gotta do this, blah, 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 blah. If you're making a fucking movie in your buddy's house on the weekend, maybe, you know, the girl playing the lead, you couldn't talk to her as much as you wanted to. You don't know her as much as you want to because everyone's working a job, you know what I mean? So it's, and maybe, you know, you only have the house for so long because they want to go out, you know what I mean? And you got to hard out at 8:30. So you can't do 50 takes. So you can't do 1 take and you can't do 50 takes. So maybe I got to do something in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think at the end of the day, it's interesting to know how these guys work, but they're on a different level. You know, David Fincher's the kind of guy who's like, listen, I'm going to spend $60 million making fucking Fight Club. You know what I mean? A movie about 2 guys in a dark hallway. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just going to do all the takes I need to, you know? And Sidney Lumet's the kind of guy who's like, listen, we're gonna set the shot up, and everyone's going to do this thing, we're going to figure it all out, and then we're going to do it, and we're going to go. So, I think both it's something to learn from, but it's nothing to emulate intrinsically.
Yeah, but what's interesting too, you know, Sidney Lumet made way more movies than Fincher or Kubrick, mm-hmm. but Sidney Lumet definitely has some forgettable ones in there.
Yeah,
and I feel like Fincher and Kubrick, you know, kind of the 2 poster boys of many takes. Like every single one of theirs is memorable in some way, whether you love it or you hate it. Mm-hmm. But you know, Sidney Lumet has some in there. He's a great filmmaker and he made a lot of classics, but he made a lot of forgettable movies too. He doesn't have 50 classics to his name.
Not
he's
50
got
classics.
You know, maybe 10. So
right.
So yeah, I mean that's another interesting point too. It's nothing against Sidney Lumet. He's a working guy. You know, mm-hmm. was a working man's director. So
it is what it is.
Some people don't make 1 classic, and he's got more than a few under his belt. So.
Indeed. Kev, are you mad as hell and not going to take it anymore, or are you generally a calm person?
I'm pretty level-headed.
I feel like I'm mad as hell, but I take it, which, you know, I don't know. What does that make me? I
want to hear you shout that from the rafters in that word.
I'm mad as hell, but, you know, I need this job.
It's okay.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a week off to watch this movie, but to you, dear listener, it's going to be the fastest 7 days of your fucking life.
Yeah, it is.
Here we go. And we're back. Kev. Before the
Jibber Jabber.
Before the devil knows you're dead. When, where, and how did you watch it?
Watched it a couple weeks ago. My Blu-ray copy at Mikasa.
I watched my Blu-ray copy at Mikasa as well on Tuesday when I was sick home from work. This is not the ideal viewing circumstance to watch a movie when you're sick. really, also when you're sick, I feel like when you're sick, it's like when the power goes out. You feel like, oh, he gets so much done. Very difficult.
Yeah, you can. It depends on how sick you are. You know, if you're really just stuffed up and gross, then you can't even breathe, then it's like, I'm just gonna sleep.
I was definitely sick enough not to go to work. Definitely sick enough not to go to work, but not so sick that I couldn't watch a movie.
All right.
But I will concede that being sick and watching a movie is not the ideal way of watching anything.
For sure.
So, temper my expectations with that. Movie opens with some sex, some doggy style sex. Interesting way to start it off. Gets your attention.
Yes, it does.
Ken, what do you think about this movie?
Obviously, I picked this for the podcast.
As we said,
I think this is a great film. I think it's I've gone on record saying I love nasty little crime thrillers, especially small town crime thrillers. And this is one of them, and I think it's one of the better ones. I just really like this movie every time I watch it. What did you think of it?
I thought the first half had some good stuff in it, but I do think that the movie ends up being a little boring. And overall, I'd say I do not like this movie.
How is this movie boring?
There is
never nothing happening. I don't think.
Here's the problem. There's a mystery here, right? And at first the mystery is the story. We're peeling back the story of who are we seeing, what are they doing, how did this happen, etc., etc. But ultimately, at a certain point, it becomes clear that everyone that we know is a bad person who is not very likable. Yeah. And then it becomes hard to cheer. And then the mystery becomes not what's happening, but will they get away with it? And it's impossible for me to cheer for them because I don't like them, right? It's not like they're like a bad guy that I love to be bad, a la Captain Cold from the Flash TV show. Shout out, Captain Cold.
That's his name, Captain Cold.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, but they play it off really well on the show. I mean, it's it's a golden age fucking name. You know what I mean? Captain Boomerang, Captain Cold.
All right.
You know.
I'll take your word for it.
But Snart is his real name, Leonard Snart.
Boy,
it gets worse. It gets worse. But I just feel like if no one is likable, and the question is, are they going to get away with it? It's like, I don't really want them to get away with it. I'm not really invested in their getting away with it. You know what I mean?
I don't think the question is, are they going to get away with it? I think it's how deep are they going to go? How far can
I can see that.
How far can they fall?
I can see that.
This isn't a movie where we're cheering for anybody. This is a tragedy.
I agree. I agree with that.
A wholly American tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the pure pursuit of money will corrupt you completely.
Right.
And what I find interesting in this is it's not really a life-changing amount of money that they're pursuing. It's like 60 grand each is what they're going to pull from.
Yeah. 120 total, 60 each.
Yeah, which is,
Which it was going to be 30 after he split it with that other guy.
Exactly. Because I just love how the stakes keep getting built in a believable way. And yeah, it's not about are they going to get away with it? Are they going to succeed? It's how depraved are they going to become? And how far are they going to fall? And I think that's what this movie is really looking at. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, the idea that you have to root for somebody, I think, is kind of for the birds.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I totally see how you could have gone into it that way. For me, it was just like, I don't know, I didn't connect on it on that level, right? I wasn't seeing it like when are they going to give it up? When are they going to call it, because they keep pushing, right? They keep pushing to wrap it all up, and it's like, they never run, they never cut bait. You know what I mean? It's what you're saying. They do go deep, and I think that is there. I guess I just didn't see it that way. You know what I mean?
In your NyQuil riddled brain.
Yeah. I was it for accuracy's sake, it was a Dayquil gel cap.
That'll make you woozy.
Not as much as the NyQuil, but I definitely wasn't good to drive.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's for.
Yeah.
But
and,
yeah,
I found some scenes to be a little bit slow. That's just like you're watching what's his face line up some coke, and it's just like, I get it, you're doing drugs, like
yeah. For sure. So, but yeah, I just like the idea that this isn't a movie where you don't always need the hero to root for, I think. And in the certain kind of story, you can pull it off. And I think this is truly one of them, where you don't need that central, like, voice of reason person where everybody is flawed in their own way.
True.
Even, you could say probably the most reasonable person is the mom, ultimately, but she's the catalyst for everything going wrong as well.
You know, I thought about that after I had watched it, and I'm like, why did she shoot the guy who robbed her? You know, like, what was the point of that? And then I'm like, well, but, you know, she doesn't know that he isn't gonna kill her. You know what I mean? Because it's like they keep emphasizing like all of the jewelry is insured, all of the so there's and then we're not gonna kill them, we're not gonna hurt anyone, so no one really gets hurt, right? They just get scared. But that's from the robber's perspective. On the flip side, if someone getting robbed, you don't know if they're gonna kill you or not. The guy has a gun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, you know, it's not like there's some big corporate chain where it's actually against policy to fight back against a robbery.
Right.
When I was working at a pizza place, if you were to ever get robbed and you fought back, you would get fired from your job.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was their policy. It's like you could get hurt, you know.
Right.
And their insurance wouldn't cover it, basically. So, but this is a mom and pop jewelry store.
That's true. To the
and then they're also old school New Yorkers, you know.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that idea is like, no, I'm gonna fuck this guy. I'm gonna shoot him, you know.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I also worked when I worked at the movie theater, which I don't know if I ever named the chain of it, but I won't do it here. They were like, yeah, if you ever... Also, some 16-year-old girl explaining the rules to me, right? As
Yeah,
like a
of course.
25-year-old man. She's like, yeah, there's nothing we have here that's worth anyone's life, so whatever they want, just give it to them, and don't fight back. And I'm like, oh, right. You know what I mean? Like, nothing here is worth my life.
Yeah,
but if it was someone who was threatening your life, that might be different.
And that store is their livelihood. Like, that is their store, you know? And it's if they are going to threaten it, you know, you can't be shocked if they're going to fight back.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think there's a... You just know in your mind, like, well, and also I think that to the movie's credit, they involve I don't know the character, I can't remember the character's name. He was like the waiter they involve, who actually does the robbery.
Oh yeah, he's the busboy.
The busboy, yeah. We don't know him, so he could shoot her. He's unhinged.
Yeah,
he's losing his mind during the robbery. I do want to talk about the robbery.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, let's talk the robbery right now.
So
it is a perfect crime on paper,
right?
Nobody gets hurt. They get what they want.
Right. Insurance covers the damages.
Covers everything for their mom and dad. It's quiet. It's quick. They get their money, and their woes are over. On paper, it's a perfect crime.
And ideally, the crime was supposed to be done by the brother, who would have been able to recognize the mom and would know where everything is. Would know not to try to smash the glass, just go for the jewels.
Yep.
Etc.
But then. So, unbeknownst to Hank, who's Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, Andy, Ethan Hawke's character, hires this busboy because he's too scared to do it on his own. But he won't admit to his brother, who he definitely feels inferior to, that he's too scared to do it on his own. And so that's kind of the first chink in the armor of the robbery. You bring in this X factor that you don't know what's going to happen. Then it actually goes down. Their plan doesn't work because their parents' assistant was supposed to be there, but she called in sick, so their mom was going to go work that day. Obviously, that guy doesn't know that, who that is. He just all he was told is some old lady is going to be there, and that's the only...
And she's not a threat.
And yeah, that's the only threat you're going to have is this old lady. And so he just sees a little old lady, goes about doing his thing, doesn't know anything about the store itself, gets himself shot, shoots and kills the mom. Alarms are going off. Andy freaks out, just runs away in his rented car. Leaves the guy's heavy metal CD in there.
They kept coming back to that, and I'm like, who cares?
Has a ridiculous mustache. Yeah, that one, I will admit that's a thread that kind of does get paid off.
And it's like, if you and me robbed a store right now and we left our CD in the rental car that we use as our getaway car, tell the rental car place to throw it away. Like, hey, I don't need that.
Yeah, I just think the idea behind it is that he keeps having to go back and there's cameras there.
Yeah.
And there's a record of him being under, they want that car completely clean so that nothing could ever tie them back to it.
Right.
Was the CD the best item to do that with? I don't really think so. Mm-hmm. But I think that's why that thread gets pulled out. So anyways, yeah, so now the mom is dead. They have no money. It's become an absolute criminal matter now because there's a murder. And then there's the guilt of, like, they have to go visit their dead mom knowing full well it was their own fault. Mm-hmm. Talk to their dad, who they don't really like, or at least Hank doesn't like his dad. Mm-hmm. And
I think no one likes the dad because the dad is very hard on the younger son as well.
He is.
He's like, he's such a baby, and
yep,
yeah.
And then now this guy is dead, the lackey they hired, but he has a sister, or he has a girlfriend with a child, who has a crazy brother played by Michael Shannon, who now gets involved with the crime and wants a cut of
Neil before Zod.
Exactly. I would not fuck with Michael Shannon, that's for sure. And it's just fascinating the way all the little things that happen, and then it all snowballs into this huge fucking thing that they have no control over. I like the idea of these guys trying to be cold-hearted criminals and not really knowing how to do it. Mm-hmm. They have an idea of how it works, and I really do think they've potentially written up the perfect crime, but they don't have the real skills to pull it off.
On that note, the heist, they show the heist itself, right?
Yeah.
And I love that cinema. I love the visual storytelling of it. I love the whole thing because in a heist, they present it they present it in a way that I would assume a heist is really like, right? We've seen it a million times. Bank robbery, whatever. Smooth criminals, right? They fucking organized, calm, collected, and sometimes it's very fun. Admittedly, that's fun, right? Yeah. Inside Man is a great example of a movie like that, where they're so precise that that becomes its own level of suspicion, because it's like, how can they be this good? You know what I mean? But this is the opposite, right? A guy enters in a ski mask with a gun, starts stealing. It's dirty, it's desperate. He's not smooth. He's not in control of himself, right? You can see that he's like, the adrenaline's pulsing through him. He's trying to, he needs to put the fucking jewels in the bag, right? Simple, but the bag is not as big as the trays that the jewels are in, so stuff's spilling on the ground. But that's merchandise that he needs to steal.
Yep.
So is he gonna put that? Is he gonna bend down and pick that up? How's he? You know what I mean? It's just like he's wasting money. You know what I mean?
And then he gets frustrated and then takes his eye off of the mom, who now has a chance to take the gun out. And then you see her reaching into the drawer, and we think, okay, maybe she's going to trip an alarm. What's she going to do? And it's the real quick. She pulls a gun out, and then it's like, now we're really fucked,
Right.
Shoots him, he shoots her. And yeah, like you said, it's messy. It's the way a real crime would happen.
It's anxious, messy, and sloppy, which I think feels real.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And sometimes you don't want that, but this time it's really good.
Sidney Lumet's the master of that. I mean, the opening of Dog Day Afternoon.
Yes.
When he just runs in and
that's another great example.
Gathering money and yelling at people, and it's chaos, and the camera's whipping around.
His friend runs away.
Exactly. It's like he's the master of showing. This is what urban crime is really like. It's not slick. It's not a movie. It's just really sloppy.
Right. There's a pro wrestler named MVP who went to jail for...
Yes.
Oh, you know?
Oh, I know MVP.
Oh, interesting.
I get my wrestling every now and then.
Yeah, did you know he went to jail when he was 16 for 9 years?
No.
For armed robbery. They robbed a cruise ship.
Really?
Thinking that if they robbed a cruise ship, the crews would be too embarrassed to make a big deal about it, which they were not.
Oh boy!
So he gives a better story, but what an interesting part of it was his friend was like kind of really amped up, and he's like, oh, I don't know about this guy. So he took all the shotgun shells out of the dude's shotgun, and the guy, he's like, listen, whatever you do, don't shoot the gun. Don't shoot anyone because we're not murderers, and don't set your gun off because that makes it a whole nother level of crime. 2 seconds into them, this is a robbery. Points at a guy, pulls the trigger, click.
God.
And so it's like, dude, you know what I mean? But I feel like that real life example personifies the level of just insanity of what you're doing, right? You're going against the grain on so many levels. You're robbing people, right? We live our normal lives not stealing from anyone. Like, you steal someone's pen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You steal their paperclip. But you're really just borrowing these things without asking. You're not like forcefully taking from another person.
Exactly.
Which is a sloppy thing. Also, another movie that reminds me of this is Place Beyond the Pines. Or Beyond the Pines.
Yeah.
And Ryan Gosling was saying when he was researching that, he was like, well, if I was ever to rob a place, I'd rob it on a motorcycle and then drive the motorcycle into a truck. And they're interviewing, I think the guy it's based on, or a guy that a robber, and he's like, the thing about it is you have to realize that it's not gonna be smooth. It's gonna be desperate and terrible. You know what I mean? You're not in control of yourself. And I think that's one of the most powerful parts about this movie. I find is just that it's not. They think it's a perfect crime, but everything that happens with it, plot wise, and the expression of it, storytelling wise, is not perfect. It's totally fucked up.
Yeah,
I think that's pitch perfect to with the story that they're trying to tell.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Yeah.
And you need someone of Lumet's like complete mastery and shot language to really pull something like that off.
I agree with you.
To do it, because he's not. Nobody ever says like any kind of on the nose dialogue about how much they fucked up. It is told through the visuals and with a lot of just incidental dialogue and not a lot of expository dialogue. So that takes a lot of skill to pull that off. And Lumet's the man.
Show don't tell. Show don't tell. What did you think about Andy's hatred for his distant father? Like, what'd you make of that? Like, there's that scene where they're after the funeral, he's sitting outside, and the dad comes out, and he's like, I'm not a good father, and he's like, yeah, you're the worst, or whatever.
Yeah. And then he has a complete breakdown in the car.
What'd you make of that? Like, do you think they're implying something, or is it just the literal what's going on here? Right?
It makes the crime make sense, because who in their right mind would rob their own parents?
Right, without cutting them in on it.
Exactly, without committing insurance fraud, basically. And it would have to be somebody who genuinely hated their father or hated
their parents. Yeah,
and I think that scene is a real crux of the movie. It informs everything that came before it and everything that comes after. It's like Andy does not feel like the love or the way he was raised has made him a better person by any means at all. In fact, he feels it's made him worse. And this is almost revenge for everything that his parents have done to him. His what he perceives as being wrong. So, because based on what we hear, we don't get a lot of specifics, but he was basically kind of pushed aside when Hank comes along and when their sister came along.
Yes. And there's enough vagary with this that, I mean, it is that way, right? It's like, you're the older brother, right?
Yeah.
So
no, I'm the younger brother.
Oh, okay.
No.
So so we both are on the same page here, where it's like, your brother had to wait till he was 10 to get a bike. But you didn't have to wait that long, because once your parents kind of understood how it all worked, they're like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I'm saying? Not that literally happened to you, but that concept with anything.
Exactly.
So we don't know if Ethan, or if not Ethan, Hank is just bitter, or if he's justified. You know what I mean? They keep it vague enough where it's like.
Or are you talking about Andy, Philip Seymour Hoffman, or Ethan Hawke?
Sorry, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character. We don't know if his anger is justified or not. It's implied that it is, but that he could have had a really shitty childhood. It could have been just kind of shitty. You know what I mean? But the movie leaves that a bit blank, and I think purposefully to say like, this isn't justified, right?
Yeah.
You can't justify getting your mother killed
because you didn't get the ideal upbringing that you thought you needed.
Right. And also, it's like, you didn't have to rob the place. You could have just opened it up, and he wanted to flee to Brazil anyways, right? So if it was closed for a long weekend or like on a holiday, he could have just went there with his key, opened it up, disabled the alarm, stole the stuff, gone on a plane, gone to Brazil. You know what I mean? He didn't have to do this.
I mean, they got security cameras and all that.
Yeah, but if
it
you're
has to look like a robbery.
But if you're going to Brazil, what do you care?
True.
No extradition.
Boom.
Marissa Tomei said that.
Yep, it's true.
I also don't like how Melissa Tomei's character was in this movie.
Why not?
Because she's just like, she's fucking two brothers, and then she's like, she leaves him and then asks him for money for a cab or whatever. She's like helpless. She's like this helpless bimbo. It's like, and she's like the only woman in the whole movie, other than the mother who gets killed.
Trying to justify it.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute.
It is a full 57 minutes before she has a full set of clothes on. I counted. She's naked for the first 57 minutes of her runtime.
But to be fair, she's only in about 5 minutes of that first 57 minutes. It's like she's naked for 16 scenes in a row.
Yeah.
Although, scratch his chin.
But again, it's another idea that she's really only interested in money, right?
Yeah.
Even though she does love Hank, Ethan Hawke's character, even though he's kind of a slob, but she knows that that he definitely has some money in his name somewhere. You know, he has his own money troubles with his wife and his kids, but somehow, you know, she's just pursuing something that just ultimately makes her happy.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I think you just make her a dumb bimbo, right? Like, I mean, it's hard also, though, because every character is kind of like this, right? Like, there's Cokie brother, there's dumbass brother, there's dumb bimbo, there's, you know, and then there's abusive father. Those are the only characters, right? So I guess she's unlikable in the way that everyone's unlikable. It's just weird, where it's just like, she's just so unlikable. She's just such a fucking piece of shit.
But she's completely helpless, too, in that they've kind of just sucked her into this web of complete dependency.
Yeah.
And yeah, she desperately wants to leave Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then she's like, oh, by the way, can I have cab fare? You know, or he tells her, like, how are you going to get there? And she's like, I guess take a cab. And he's like, do you need money? Because he knows she does.
Right.
And it's that... It just shows, playing into the theme, the hollow pursuit of money. And that's all these people have, and it's all they've ever wanted. And it's not the answer for anything. But they just keep perpetuating it, and just... It's not a happy thriller, but it's a dark one.
It is a dark one. Also, the photography of the movie is very dark. And at first I was like, I don't think I like this. You know what I mean? A lot of deep shadows in people's faces. Very rarely are both sides of their faces lit up by anything. But then as the movie went on, I think I really connected to it. It's just...
And it's amazing. They used almost all natural light.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about, we only put up a light if we absolutely needed to. But it looks completely professionally shot.
Yeah.
It doesn't just... Because there's usually... When someone says, oh, we shot with natural light, I'm like, okay, this movie's going to look really flat. Because there's going to be no shadows. There's going to be nothing to pop people out from the background. But this movie's got really great all kinds of lighting schemes and camera work. And it's brilliantly lit, I think. So, again, the eye of a master can find those little moments and knows what makes it work. Just go back to more of the filmmaking technique. The economy of a lot of shots is really amazing. One that I pointed out, seeing it again, is when he's in a meeting, they're talking about the IRS audit and that they're going to get audited. Philip Seymour Hoffman's in this meeting. And then they bring up to him that the audit's coming from your department and, you know, we're going to pursue that. And it's this big conference room table scene. Most everybody else would have shot probably 2 or 3 different cuts and cut between them. Sidney Lumet, he pushes in from behind Philip Seymour Hoffman to the guy who's talking, and then to get his reaction shot, he just flips around and then sees Philip Seymour Hoffman like right on point when it's time for him to react to the news about the IRS audit. And it's such a clean, one-shot way to do it. And it takes somebody of Lumet's caliber to pull that off. You know, it's just so quick, but such a brilliant, simple move. And you don't need all these different cuts to, like, build the suspense. He does it in one sweeping shot.
Right.
So it's just, there's lots of stuff like that throughout it that I really like.
Do you think the movie can work in a linear fashion, story-wise?
I used to think it could until this latest watch, and I really do like the fractured structure. Because it opens with the robbery, gives us a little flavor scene, then we get a little more of the story, then we get another angle of the robbery. It gives us the information at just the right time, whereas if we had just gotten it all straight through, the movie would be really front-loaded with exposition. And then the robbery wouldn't come till about almost the exact halfway mark. So nothing of real action is taking place until the halfway point. I think that would have really made the pacing a slog. But the way they put it together, it makes it this really interesting thriller.
I agree with you. And I mean, I had my problems with the movie in terms of, you know, interest or whatever. And I think you're right. I think that they basically cut it in a way that makes it fit into the 3-act structure by rearranging everything and showing things twice and whatever, and then that also reveals things, as and the things being reveals the plot as you go. And if you told it just as it happened, you're right. It would just be this way back-ended story, right? It'd be a bunch of boring setup and then this crazy bizarre second half, which probably would just not feel right. You know what I mean?
And they find just the right time to reveal a lot of little things. How Hank gets roped into the robbery by Andy, because he's like, we know he does it,
right?
But then we see how he doesn't really want to do it, but then is desperate enough that he finally needs to. And there's the great line when Andy's trying to convince him, and they're kind of laughing it off, like, we're not gonna do this. And Andy's like, no, I'm serious, and tells him how much they're gonna make, and he still says no. And he goes, how about a $2,000 advance? And he's just that desperate because of his child support needs and his wife nagging him, that's what puts him over the edge, is just that that little taste of what they could get,
Yeah, and I feel like that scene was really interesting, because in conjunction with a lot of other things, right? Like, he's behind on his child support. His kid wants to go to New York City and see the Lion King or whatever. Yeah. And it's going to cost $135, right? Which is, in the grand scheme of things, if you have a real job, not that much money, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, I can't. Ultimately, he tells the kid, I can't afford to let you go. You know what I mean? But he's at the bar every night drinking, and so is that intentionally juxtaposed that way, where it's he probably spent $200 tonight drinking, or $100 tonight drinking, and he could just, if he was just more disciplined, he wouldn't have these problems.
Most likely. But that's the same idea as that with Andy's money troubles, is he's deep within whatever his money's buried in. And yeah, if he was just more responsible, sure, he'd be fine. Mm-hmm. But they're not responsible.
Right.
And they're not smart enough to get themselves out of it without getting in trouble, basically. Their best option is to rob their own parents' jewelry store.
What do you think that Andy's money is tied up in?
Probably his heroin addiction, which is not a cheap hobby, and he goes to Manhattan to get it at his super high-rise kimono dealer,
Kimono dealer taking a bullet in the face.
Whew, rough. But yeah, I think his is, probably his addiction, and then his wife's lifestyle and desire to, they have to go to Brazil to feel like real people, and going to Brazil ain't cheap, so...
But then,
what I understand.
There's actually an interesting redeeming thing where she's like, I don't want a husband who has to go to Brazil with me to feel alive.
Yeah.
So it's is it her or is it him? You know what I mean? Does she need to go to Brazil or does he need to go to Brazil? You know what I mean?
That's, it's one of the questions, and it is. And again, money is not solving that issue. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the ultimate theme of this movie, is that money is kind of the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. And it's the endless pursuit of it will just eat you alive,
right?
Or get you shot or killed, or have your own father smother you with a pillow.
Now that you brought that up, what do you make of that ending where the father smothers? He says, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault," and then the father smothers him with a pillow. I also felt like that scene had a lot of unnecessary, when he hooks up the EEG thing to himself. I'm like, is there a point to this?
My mom was a nurse for 35 years. Those alarms go off immediately if something is wrong. Basically. And, he spent a lot of time in the hospital with his dying wife, so he kind of knows the ins and outs a bit of the medical equipment. Mm-hmm. And, if somebody's heart rate just starts suddenly going up and then flatlines, nurses are running to that immediately. Mm-hmm. Literally alarms go off in their stations. So I think it is important for him to hook it up so that while Andy is dying,
no one knows.
That nobody knows about it. So, and another smart thing to do, he tests it out real quick and then asks the nurse, he's basically testing their response time on it, because he turns it off and turns it back on, sees that nobody comes, asks the nurse, is like, oh, it kind of flicked out. She's like, oh, that's fine, just restart it. So he knows he'll have enough time to get away with it, basically, and that's just in a really short amount of time. But yeah, if somebody is flatlining, nurses are there immediately.
So... Very interesting.
So,
what do you make?
A little insider perspective.
Yeah. Serious Nurse Jibber Jabber. What do you make of the ending where he kills his son? Do you think that's an indictment against Andy? Do you think it's an indictment against the father? Do you think it's an indictment against the whole thing?
I think it's an indictment against Andy because he only brought that on himself. He did one of the most deplorable things you could do in that, rob your own parents for your own personal gain. Mm-hmm. And just continually went down the rabbit hole and made it just worse and worse with a trail of bodies behind him.
But the thing is that I feel like it has to be an indictment of the I don't know if the movie actually does this, but maybe this is me adding to it. It has to be an indictment of the father, too, because he's going to kill his own son, right? He can let the authorities punish him. You know what I mean? He can never talk to him again, but he has to hurt him. And it kind of speaks to maybe justifying Andy's earlier claims that he's a bad father, because he's like, he has to get his revenge on his own son.
Yeah.
He can't just let, the natural thing happen and him,
I mean, again, he's just way too emotional. His son led to the death of his wife, who he clearly loved for many, many years. Too.
Right.
So it's, why should he forgive him? And maybe he never liked Andy as a son.
Well, I think that's there.
Could be that part. Like, why should he get put through the justice system when he could just do it right there?
Well,
I'm not saying that's right, but that's what his mind
in
the grand scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I don't know if I liked that ending. I don't know if I enjoyed watching it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't know if I agree that Andy should get punished. Like, why his brother kind of gets away with it? You know what I mean? And what's the statement?
Yeah.
Is the
But Hank's kind of just a patsy, anyways.
Yeah, but it's his. I mean, he got involved. It's his fault too. You know what I mean?
True.
He involved the
guy who ultimately killed their mother.
Right. And then the guy who killed his mother, that brings the hell down on them, right? They would have gotten away with it if what's his face Zod didn't show up and fucking ask for $10,000.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, nobody's right in this story. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I like about the movie. It's that nobody makes a completely rational decision, and it shows just how far that can get out of control. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know. Something about that clicks with me with this particular story. Other films, maybe not so much. Like, if every character was absolutely despicable. But for some reason, this story can handle all of that. And Sidney Lumet's talent can wrap it all up in a way that makes sense. And the screenwriter, Kelly Masterson, can make it work as well. So, it's just kind of that perfect mix of it could all go off the rails, but for this, it really gels for me. But maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe it won't work for others.
Evocative. No, it doesn't really work for me, but that's okay. Do you have any nitpicks?
Not very many.
I got one.
What's your one?
Well, I had two. It was the third. How can he be going to this swanky bar with the kid? But we talked about that. Philip Seymour Hoffman makes six figures but drives an 80s Saab. How? Why?
It's true.
You think, he put that Ferrari on the black card, I would imagine he would have like a 90s Porsche at least, not an 80s Saab.
True.
But
small budget movie. Mm-hmm. You can only afford so many Saabs.
There's only so many left. R.I.P. Saab.
That's true. Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot of nitpicks. Mine, again, was the CD. I get what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, that too.
But it is drawn out a little too much. And also, that rental car guy, get off the phone and help the guy who walked in.
Right.
For God's sakes.
You got any cool stuff that you want to share?
A lot of little moments that I think are really cool in this movie. The way they introduced the idea of the money problems is they're at the kids' baseball game. They're buying hot dogs. Ethan Hawke offers to buy everybody hot dogs. Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, oh, no, I got it. He's like, no, I'll do it. And he goes, are you sure? And, like, that's your first idea into, like, what the actual problem is in the movie. That's just a really nice way to bring it back. Mm-hmm. They're believable as brothers even though they don't look alike.
Yeah.
Which my brother and I don't look a lot alike, and everybody says, like, you guys act such brothers, So that was a good dynamic.
I would argue that me and my brother don't look anything alike, but I think some people would disagree.
Certain folks. Amy Ryan finally gets to play a cold hard bitch. She is Hank's wife. I feel like Amy Ryan always has to be the upstanding wife or the upstanding cop And it's just nice to let her be a little nasty every now and then. So good work, Amy Ryan.
I do feel I know this is cool stuff, but another nitpick I have is why she's always bringing up child support, like she can't have a conversation with him about anything else. It's fine, but I wish we even saw her interacting with someone else to show that, like, no, she's not a mean person or anything. She just hates this guy.
Yeah.
And maybe more deservedly so, because you know what I mean. But they never truly bury Ethan Hawke. But maybe that's because Ethan Hawke is just so goddamn charming.
Yes, so. I mean, he can get Marissa Tomei, so there you go.
Got her.
Yeah, that's about all I got. Also, would cigarettes and orange juice be a good combination?
No.
I don't think it would be.
No, cigarettes and most things I don't think would be a good combination.
Well, no, but, yeah, usually not orange juice. That's for sure.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, my note says cigarette and OJ, and I know exactly which scene they're talking about.
Yeah.
Gross.
I do think that one of the cool things is his weird opium den scene. Very strange, but
believable in a way of, like, this is how a high-class New Yorker would go do drugs.
Right.
You know, he's not going to go some flop house in upstate New York. He's going to go to a nice place.
Yeah, he's not going to go to
rules.
He's not going to go to Griffith Park, Central Park, and ask for anyone know about H?
Yep.
You got any H lying around?
And there's that really great shot when it's high up, you can see the whole thing. You see Kimono Guy just kind of like smoking a cigarette, looking out the window. He's having this soliloquy about his whole life. Camera pans really close to him, and then the guy just kind of brushes him off, like, he's like, get a wife. He goes, I have a wife. Get a shrink.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just a really nice, you know, the world's kind of against Andy, but it's kind of his own making.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
his refusal to try to do the right thing.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I just like that nasty little theme that it does. It's nihilistic to a point, but I think it's truer than we want to admit about how the world could actually work. You know, some people have no desire to be redeemed, and it's their own downfall.
It's true. So, in the end, you like it? You recommend it?
I do. I think it's it's the final film of one of the greatest American filmmakers who ever worked. It's a good, nasty little thriller. Great performances. A good, solid plot. Well shot, well lit, well edited, well scored. I think it's a great film.
I think I didn't like it, but I could recommend it. Like, I can see other people liking this, and not in a pejorative way, like, oh, other people like it, but just like, I didn't really like it, but, you know, if, like what you say, right? If you are in the mood for a small town, small crime, dark thriller,
that's it.
I mean, you probably would like it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you wouldn't, but you probably would.
Yeah.
So, don't really love it, don't really like it, but, you know.
Maybe watch it sober sometime. See what you think.
Not sick drunk. That
could have affected it.
It could have. It's true.
And yeah, it's definitely. Am I gonna just plop down and watch this movie? No. It's like it's not for every occasion. I
will indict it by saying I've turned it off and then immediately turned on Turbo Kid and watched Turbo Kid on Netflix and loved the fuck out of that movie.
I have not watched Turbo Kid.
I highly recommend it because it is masterworks.
All right. Good to know. That trailer didn't sell me too hard on it.
What?
But I'll give it a shot.
Ooh, crazy. I don't know if you like it then, because it's basically, it's just a trailer, but for 90 minutes.
I'll try it.
It's fucking great. I mean, I'm not, I may or may not have made a movie called Turbo Cop, which they may or may not have not stolen the title from. Who is to say what really happens or doesn't happen in this world?
Which
we
may or may not be doing for this podcast.
Right.
So rumors have heard.
But at the end of the day, Turbo Kid, just, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, so I guess if you're not feeling Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, turn on some Turbo Kid.
That is what I would say. Turbo Kid. Turbo Kid.
Turbo Kid.
Super good.
All right, I'll watch it.
Okay.
You convinced me. Because I made you watch this, I'll watch Turbo Kid.
Let me know what you think.
I'll let you know.
Maybe we'll do it for the podcast, or maybe we won't. This episode written by Kev, hosted by me and Kev. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev.
That's me. That's you.
Music by Jeff Russell. See you next time, everybody. May you be in heaven for 30 minutes before the devil knows you're dead.
Just be careful with your money, all right?